transferred to this computer. So IP, this may be new since you stepped away. We've brought all of the engineering into what used to be just the PM and UX sync. So you all can understand what we're looking at on the roadmap, what our priorities are, research findings, so that hopefully engineering can be more of a voice in like how we're building out and shaping the product in our direction. Um, so normally here I'll give like a roadmap review of anything upcoming or updates. There aren't any changes from last time, so rather than bore you with looking at the same roadmap again, we can jump straight into the research that Taina's been completing.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. This is quite fresh. I literally just now posted the report on the research issue. That was a relatively low effort research that I've conducted with collaborating with Jeff and also with some input from Ben and Will from Global Search. And that's the idea came from some user interviews that we had where we were exploring difficulties with users encountering like difficulties switching projects from the nav survey. And people indicated like issues with the discoverability of the functionality within our existing global search for switching projects. And they appreciated this functionality, but they just were not aware that this was even possible within the search bar. So we wanted to see if like making some small changes to the placements or to the copy, we would be able to increase the visibility and discoverability of this feature without like complex design or like a new functionality within the UI. So we went ahead with unmoderated tests. So because of the complexity of the test groups, we had like 6 groups in total. So each of them were exposed to a mockup with the default project main project page, where we would just change the placement of the search bar and the copy of the CTA. So the original one is that it's placed in the left side nav bar, and it says search or go to, and then 3 dots. So we tested an alternative placement. So on the top right of the screen, top right side of the screen, and also 2 other alternative copies. So we tested search or go to project instead of just the 3 things, being more specific about what this could do for them in terms of project switching. And another one, which was still quite broad, but specific to navigate and not only search. So navigate using search. So we tested this. I added a link to the full report if you want to look at the data. And there was a lot of data that we collected, but in general, what we found out is that the search or go to project CTA was the one that most effectively communicated that they would be able to use this for switching projects and led them to more intuitively and immediately identify this as an option. Because in the test, we basically asked them, where would you go to within the UI if you wanted to go to another project? So we let them explore freely and come up with a method of choice. And we checked whether they would identify the search as an option, basically, and also asked them, how clear do you think this communicates that you can use this to search for projects or anything else? And so, yeah, this was the winner in terms of the copy. And in terms of placement for project navigation, that's a disclaimer because the tests were assessing the search functionality for specifically this task and not search for the things. But for this task specifically, it seems that the side one, it's more aligned with their mental models when it comes to navigating to a different project. So they associated this more with navigating to different projects. So they even, like, some people say that they associate the search bar with a context-specific search. So they say that, oh, I normally expect the search to allow me to search within the project that I'm in and not anything beyond this project. So when it comes to going to a project, that's a different mindset, that's a different type of task. So it's not naturally associated with the search bar. That's why if we want to drive adoption of this specific tool for project navigation, we need to explicitly call this out. So they really appreciated the version that says go to project, because then they would more easily assume that, oh, maybe this is also an added functionality. But the downside is that they assume that this is the only thing that this could do for them, because we are being so specific that they say, oh, it cannot do anything else. So we need to account for that as well, and maybe combine like specificity with versatility. So we didn't really test a specific version, but maybe a combination of both. Something, I don't even know if the amount of the size of the search bar allow for something like that, but if we could go for search, go to projects and more, or search, go to projects, issues, or whatever, this might be a better way to balance this out. So yeah, those are the key insights from this test. And now we're going to be discussing how to proceed, if we can just like implement this right away and monitor the impact on the usage, or if we want to do more testing before we go for any sort of implementation or A/B testing. So I haven't discussed this with the team yet, so that's just like fresh insights that I got from the tests. Yeah, this is it. Any question or ideas?
This is super
Let me
helpful.
know. Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any immediate reaction from folks in the team. Like, what if we were to just change the copy from search or go to search and go to whatever it says, to search or go to project? Like, if we tried that, we've got analytics to know if that's driving engagement. What do y'all think?
I think it would be tricky to read that data, because at the same time, we also want people to use search more to search things. So if that is like successful, the number in clicking the thing would go up, but maybe they go up because more people realize, okay, this is also a search thing and this is a command palette. And so that's the issue. It's all the same, right?
Yeah.
And about the positioning, I think it's also twofold, or like a bit tricky, because me personally, the pure searching stuff, I would expect more, or I like this top bar thing more, because the top bar looks more, let's say, global to me personally. And the sidebar even can be invisible if you're on mobile. So I'm not sure if that was tested to give a mock-up where the sidebar is hidden and you first need to discover that there's a sidebar and that there's a search in the sidebar. But I also, in the same time, agree that this navigating projects inside a top right search is also not so intuitive. So it's kind of pulling into two directions in a way.
It's interesting that you bring this perspective, because how we set up the test is we first had an initial exploration task where we said just like go to the UI, explore it, and come up with like possible method or methods for switching between projects. And this is how we actually identified if they like spontaneously or literally intuitively identify the search. But then there was a second one where we prompted them to just explore further the UI, go to the UI again, and see if you can find any additional methods that you didn't mention in the first task. So we actually say, okay, make this effort and open up your mindset. And that's when you see that more people actually identified the search on the top bar. So it seems that when they are prompt, or when they are specifically and actively looking for alternatives to their initial method of choice, then they consider this, which makes me even more think that, okay, their first choice is looking for something within the navigation, something navigation related. But yeah, if there is any like trigger or hint that there might be something else, but this hint needs to be on the nav sidebar, maybe they consider the search for that, but it's not their first option, something that, yeah, okay, now I can consider this as an option. So it was also interesting to see this differentiation. And yeah, the thing is, like, it's two different tests, two different mental models that we are just like trying to combine, because we already have the search functionality. But yeah, it's kind of like a workaround, I think, to how they would normally think of navigating between projects. Or I don't even know from a designer point of view if it would make sense to have two search bars, or one that is on the left nav just to drive project navigation, and keep one on the top for like broader search or searching within something. And there was even like an interesting perception that many people mentioned, that they assume that there is some left to right hierarchy within the UI, where things on the left side, where things more on the left side are more like broad, and the more they go to the side is more specific, because you have like the project, and then you have like something even more specific within that project. So maybe that's also why it was on the top, but it was on the right side and not on the left side or in the middle or whatever. And because there is already like a project there, some people say, oh, because there is like project related stuff on the left side already, I just would assume that anything project related would be on the left side. So yeah, it is tricky to combine those two different universes. And maybe just adjusting the copy would be the best way to explicitly call out that there is two functions within the same search bar. But yeah, I get your point.
I think as well, like that, there's not two functions within the same search bar. There's like tens of functions within that same search bar, which is do we care about the ones that aren't switching project or just regular searching enough to have that and more? I mean, there's nowhere near enough room to list everything that we can do, but like it's interesting to think about like how much we even care about. Oh, and you can search for files, and you can search for users, and you can change your settings, and you can, I can't remember, there's other things you can do, I'm sure, but like, you know, like
we
if-
could
if-
also we could gamify it, like, you know, sometimes in some UIs you have like words swapping out. So we could you could, you know, if you hover it, you could be like search or go to project, search or go to, you know, and then swap after.
Yeah.
If you hover it long enough, you know, go group or go you know, to file or whatever, right? Like, I don't know.
I think we've got a mechanic for that in the search bar already, that we have some like rotating quick tip that changes.
Yeah, that's true. Tip
Yes, we
type
do.
add
Yeah.
to search for users. Is this
But
every
need to
time you
get
open it?
into the search to get this, right? It's not like, or is it a
Yeah.
whole? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
It's
we
there
could
every time
maybe
you open
collect
the search,
metrics
yeah.
on people and be like, if they never use the search, we show them like a tooltipy thing like 3 times. By the way, you can use this to search for files, meaning of life, and whatever, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, some people suggested like having this like icon that suggests that you can have some explanation of how you could use this for kind of like for learnability, kind of.
You just replace it with a button that's called the do anything button, and then they click that to see what that is, right? Like,
I don't know what you look for, what you're looking for. Just click here and see if that's gonna help you out.
Your
Or
official
if you
panic
don't,
button.
if you don't use GitLab, right, you just darken out the whole page and only the search button remains, right? Like, you come back
There we
from your
go.
lunch break, you're opening your browser and only the search button is visible.
yeah. We
And also,
can run A/B tests on these though, right? Like if there is
Yeah.
something we want to
Yeah,
test with
no.
actual users, like not suggesting that the UX research isn't actual users, but I mean like with a big number of people where we've got less specifics but more volume, right? Is that something that will be helpful for the UX research, being able to do that?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think so too. Ben is doing some of that. He's going to try moving the placement from the sidebar to the top bar and seeing what that does to metrics, but just for a certain cohort of users. So I think we got a few areas that we can continue exploring here that I've got noted down. So I'll take some of these and put this into the research issue that you had started, Tina, so we can follow up some of these
Awesome.
conversations async.
Perfect. And if any of you has any insights, please join the discussion in the issue as well.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Tina. Next up, talking about notifications. Amelia, I see you've got a big discussion topic about the design side. Should we start on the development stuff first and then return to your discussions?
Sounds good.
Okay. So on the development side, how's things looking? Thomas, I see you've got some points about snoozing.
Yes. About the snoozing to-dos, right? So I lost myself in the agenda. So in the active project section. Yeah, just quick note to keep everyone updated. Paul and I had a quick chat today how we could get started, like with supporting the snoozing on the database level. And I think we can simplify the initial plan a bit. And we both agreed that it would probably like hold at least for the MVC or for what we've seen now in the designs. And I like the draft is 5 lines of code, so it doesn't do anything. It is just adding the table to the column and using it in these active record scopes. So you can just simply look in the timestamp and say, if the snoozed time is in the future, then the thing is snoozed. And if the snooze time is a past timestamp, then the snooze is over, and we can just show it with the pending, with the normal to-dos again. So that was, with that, I think we could slowly start getting our hands dirty in that DB part of that. And with adding the UI and the real functionality for the users, we should probably wait for the view migration of the whole to-do page. But this little bit we could do in parallel.
With
Awesome.
the way we need to do GraphQL releases, like we need to add it, and then in the next milestone, add the UI changes that use that GraphQL. I'm going to say endpoint and be wrong. You know what I mean, though, right? Like, is it worth doing this DB side of things before the UI so that it's ready when we need to do the UI work?
I always have to refresh my memories when it comes to what DB migrations need to be one release ahead and so on. So maybe someone else knows better, but having that column early, let's say, can't hurt. I think it's probably better than doing it in the very last minute and then some release cycle comes in between.
I would add, I think that Sam is right, and we probably should add stuff to GraphQL as early as possible, even if it's a no-op. Even if the field is just there and always null, if we add that as well, then we can start using it a month later. So yeah, so similar to adding a column that does nothing, we should consider GraphQL from the get-go, because Marco's View app uses GraphQL. And otherwise, we always would need to wait one more release, right? So, yeah.
Cool, that's good to know. So certainly if there's any of that that's ready to go in this milestone, wonderful. If not, we can make sure that's top of the list for 17.5. Cool, thank you, Thomas and Paul. IP, something about the View app.
Yes, so we talked last week with Marco. I don't know if there was no update yet. So Marco, the community contributor, has basically everything implemented. The backend changes are now all merged. He now assigned me one MR that introduces a feature flag. And then after that, we agreed that, we are just going to take his existing MR, and the View app is already done. It works like the current to-dos. The only caveat is that the filtering is a little bit different / broken. For example, you can't filter by author. And I think this is then where we need to make a judgment once we have the first version of the View app up, where we have to make a judgment between product and UX, whether it makes sense to try to restore the original functionality or just move forward and implement the first iteration of the filtering as we plan to. Yeah.
Very cool.
And this is all feature flagged as well, right, Lucas? So you can...
Yeah, it would be feature flagged, and I mean, as soon as it's deployed on .com, we can just enable it for the team, right? Like we can enable it for all of us, and then we can see the View app and we can see how it behaves. Counts are also broken, but counts are currently broken as well. So who cares, right? Yeah, yeah. And there are
we'll
like
break them again with snoozing. So
yeah, and there are also some oddities around, because basically what happens is you get a list of 20 to-dos, and then to-dos that you're not allowed to see are filtered out, right? So sometimes you might see 15 to-dos, and sometimes you might see 20. And
That's the
pagination
hidden
works still.
issue that Marco was talking about.
yeah, hidden issue thing. And also like the best example that we in the company have is that if you are getting logged out from Okta and you have like a to-do in the GitLab org, in the GitLab com space, you don't see it, right? Like, so, but that's broken right now in to-dos as well. So like, yeah, same broken thing as before.
Yep.
Yeah, like if you've got your 20 most recent to-dos of hidden behind SAML, you get an empty to-do page and you can click next and then you start to see to-dos. It's
yes.
But that's today, right? That's not
Yes.
We're not breaking that.
So complicated.
But we can
It does feel like we could even revisit the decision for how we treat hidden to-dos. Like rather than not showing them, we could show an explicit statement of you cannot view this until you log in or whatever.
Exactly. This is also what I said, like, and we could even make it so that you can resolve them, because there might be to-dos that you're not ever able to resolve. They get cleaned up daily though, Heinrich told us, I think, or Marco. Like, so if you, for example, get a to-do on a project and then your access to that project is removed, 24 hours later, that to-do is removed. There's like a cleanup that runs once a day.
Right.
Yes. So the question is whether you really need it. But I guess the people who like seeing zeros and have everything done, they are mad if they see to-dos that are not there. Yeah. Anyway,
it feels like we get a new is this known about this every single week, so people care.
Yes. We can just remove the counts, like no counts, right? Like if the list is empty, the list is empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I certainly see why so many systems just use the bell icon with a little bubble. Like,
yeah,
who knows how many things this bubble represents?
Yes. Cool. That's it from there. Yeah, if we're lucky, we have the view app, by the end of the week or start of next week, and can start playing with it. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. That's very exciting. Thank you, IP. Amelia, you want to talk about notification settings?
I realize we have 5 minutes left and I have to leave in 5 minutes because I have to take my daughter to camp. But I put a bunch of notes in the agenda so you can read through them if you have time. And I can give you the briefest of overviews, which may or may not make sense. 1 sec, I will. Hopefully you can see my screen. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'll take you through a really quick walkthrough of what we've been thinking about for settings. As you probably all know, this is the current settings page. Ideally, future vision, it would be really nice if we could just have people choose level and where they want to receive their settings, have it be really simple, a lot cleaner and easier to use. That would be kind of the dream. I don't know if we'll ever be able to get there, but that's something that would be nice to shoot for. So we're looking at how we might be able to iterate towards that. Right now, since you can't get the same notifications in email and in the UI on the to-do list, we're talking about having the settings be separate. And we were kind of exploring some options. If we could make it super easy for the users, it would probably look something like this. It would just be turn them on and off, but that's not going to scale as we add more notification types. And it also would have to be, it wouldn't scale as we allow people to edit their settings between different projects and groups. They would have to do that individually, and that just wouldn't work. So unfortunately, this isn't going to work. So again, looking at separate setting options, like maybe we just have a separate control so people can decide what notification level they want their to-do list notifications to come in at. So using the same levels as we have for email notifications for the UI notifications, and the same UI, so we're not inventing the wheel at this point. The problem with this approach is that it is recreating a UI that we don't like. So I don't want to make additional technical debt that we're going to have to then remove. So I mean, maybe we just add a drop down to the existing page. Like ultimately we want to redo most of this page. We can't do it all at the same, all immediately. So I mean, maybe we just add a drop down and people can decide what notification level they want for their UI notifications. So these are some of the things we are exploring, and I think this is, it's messy and hard to use, not an ideal end state, but trying to figure out a way to iterate towards something that might work. I just kind of wanted to share that we're talking about this because it feels like there's trade-offs no matter which way we go. We want to do this in a way that's sensible, that doesn't create a bunch of tech debt. And I'm sure that like all of you have great ideas, and I don't want to make sure that, we're not considering an approach that any of you might have that's better than what we're coming up with, because it's a really tricky problem and we want to do the right thing that's not going to lead us down the wrong path for being able to clean this up in the future. And I don't know the right way to ping you all. I don't know who's working on what or who might have capacity or interest in helping us unravel this. And I also feel like probably helping us unravel this would mean really diving into the code, and I don't know what the capacity is for that either. So I just kind of wanted to surface that we're talking about this, that we're running into various walls as we're trying to figure out a solution for this, and that it would be great to probably get more eyes on this settings problem, but also that I wasn't sure how best to engage. So I don't know if any of you have immediate thoughts. Otherwise, the issue is linked in there, and please feel free to dive in.
Thank you, Amelia.
My 4-minute overview.
I appreciate that. That was a good rundown.
Okay.
Sam, as we were talking earlier about areas that we could use some like architectural level insight and thinking, this would be a very good place. So I can hit you and maybe IP up as well, because I know that you've been looking into this and start talking about technically under the hood, how do notification settings work and how can we mirror them into to-dos or decide to burn it all down and do something better. Whatever the approach is, we want your voice in it more than just mine and Amelia's.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And thank you for summarizing in 4 minutes there, Amelia. Like this, you did a good job. The thing I'd want more information on, I guess, right? You showed what the ideal state was. You said we couldn't get there. I'm not sure why. It's probably in them issues. It's probably in there, but like, from your perspective, it'd be good to see like why you think we can't get there, and then have the engineering look at it as well to see if, what routes can we take to get to where we want to be with that. Yeah, it's tricky when we think about notifications and to-dos as separate but the same, but also very much different things. There's some things we'll be able to do with one that we can't do with the other, but then if we're re-architecting the whole thing, maybe we can do anything we want. Maybe we can do less. I don't know. I don't think I answered any questions there, but like just to say that we also, it's also a big unknown for us, right?
Awesome. Appreciate that, Sam. Well, I know we're at time. Amelia, thank you for running that down. And I'll continue any conversations that we need from here. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great afternoon.